Okay, so I hope you can all hear me and see me. We had a bit of a technical glitch a while back, and I apologize for that. And so I'm here today, and I'm going to just cut to the chase. The topic that is in everybody's mind, that what happens at the end of this pandemic, and how do we learn to live with it? How do we learn to live post it? And a lot of my friends, architects, colleagues, clients, it's the same discussion everywhere. How is it going to impact how we live? So there's a wide thought process on this, and I'm going to start with the widest, which is that, is this a whole paradigm shift? And are we going to think about, or I agree that we should think about a more decentralized way of living. I think, for me, I think for years, the fact that we have been attracted to focus and gather in cities, like in large cities, high density cities with high dependence on migrant populations, is not proving to be the way to live now. And there has been talk for the longest time about an urban design and urban planning approach that talks about townships, satellite towns. People, yes, they might move away from their villages, from rural environments to for a more industrialized livelihood, a more semi-rural livelihood. But these have to now happen closer to where the home is. High density of cities with millions and millions of people is not going to be the way forward. So that brings into question a lot of recent possibilities that have been developed in the last 2 decades or 3 decades, which have been about high density development, transit oriented development. We've built metros, we've given higher FSIs on both sides of metros. They've almost become destinations and people attractors. And we've been talking about placemaking, where thousands of people can cohabit the same open spaces, the same office towers, the same metro lines, 50 floors up and 5 floors down under the ground. I think we will probably, in the aftermath of this pandemic, look back at more 50s, 60s planning in India especially, where we were looking at low-rise, high density. We were not so reliant on vertical transportation. And there'll be smaller townships, in some ways perhaps fostering a more intimate community life, which is more about neighborhood. And I think we might have to just revisit all of those concepts. I also think that whilst there was a lot of talk about a decentralized way of work when the entire onset of digital communication began, but I think we've really learned how to do that during this pandemic. And thus, I think decentralized living, using the digital medium to communicate, is going to create a new way of working as well. Now, I've been thinking a lot about like the different kind of work we do at Morphogenesis, and I've thought of how each of our discussions is going to change. So here is one of my discussions. So if we want to, for example, think about how is residential design going to change. So we've talked about high density, low rise. How about that every child, every adult living in a family is going to require a place that transforms into an office or into a workplace. So focus is probably, in my opinion, going to move away from enriching a house by adding more luxury materials, more expensive sort of interior decor, but instead more transformable spaces. Does the dining room become a conference table? Does it become one where the television becomes a video conferencing tool through the day and then a family entertainment tool in the evening? Do people need privacy from each other to live? Or do they need privacy from each other to work? So is it still going to be drawing room, family lounge, and bedroom, or is it going to be drawing room slash conference room, bedroom slash workspace? So, I think where space allows, there will be a lot of multitasking. In smaller residential homes, I think common areas will turn into sort of shared workplaces, which one leases out for a set of number of hours. And I think we are going to be more focused on choosing to buy apartments or rent apartments where we know there's a workplace available for us. So if it's not at home, it's near enough to home. I've thought about how is commercial office space going to change. Is it going to be about gathering a large number of people in open plan offices as we have been doing? And a lot of positive social impact has happened due to open workplace. But anyway, there was already a lot of noise starting about the noise of an open workplace. And now if conferencing over a screen is going to be at least occupying part of the time for majority of the people, open plan is not going to work. So we have to rethink what is a workspace like. And is it a workspace that kind of multitasks for different people and does different things at different times? Is it a series of business center like rooms which you come to and you use for a certain duration of work till you return to your other workplace at home? So I think there's a lot that architects, interior designers, workplace designers have to think about how people will work. I know for a fact that we're going to move away from the large gathering of people. You know, we went from 10,000, at the start of my career, I was designing ideal floor plates which were 10 to 12,000 square feet. Then came IT boom, and then it became minimum 50,000 square feet. Then it became IT campuses where each service is being provided by a discrete set of people who coexist in the same building but do not share the same space. So there has been, I think there will be a return back to the smaller workspace. And the other thing is that I think we are not going to be moving so far away from our homes. We are not going to choose to live in one city and then travel to another, like we do, for example, in Delhi and its neighboring cities that have come up in the last 2-3 decades, like Gurgaon, Faridabad, Noida. I think people travel between any of these NCR cities quite easily for work. But given the fact that work will be at two locations, home and work, I think the commute will lessen. The commute to work will lessen, so they will either some workplaces will come closer into the city and there will be a re-emergence of smaller district center kind of locales, or people themselves will move their homes closer to where the work is. But I think use of public transport, which got a different sort of coloring in the last sort of Uber days, and Uber and Ola days have given public transport a different meaning. I worry that we will be going back to our own personal modes of transport. Hence, whilst we will be looking at conserving fuel, we will be looking, but we will move away from sharing. And this is something that is a cause of concern to me, that I thought we were going to move away from, needing a lot of cars. I think we might be going back into requiring more cars, because everybody will want the safety of their own, want to be in control. So the word control actually that is it. We will all want to be more in control of our environment, and therefore more responsible for the design of our environment, more responsible for how we communicate in that environment. Then I thought a lot about a lot of typologies which I fear will disappear. I think as we go to trusting ourselves the most, we will next move to trusting our immediate families and then communities. So I see a resurgence of local community spaces. I see local community clubs becoming important. I see cinema halls not being important because one is not in control. So you don't know who's been there, you don't know how sanitized the environment is. Now, of course, there will also be emergence of better and better sanitization, and the things will be marketed based on how sanitized they are. But I have a sense of the fact that entertainment will move to a neighborhood level because you know your neighborhood. I want to share my experience with our local RWAs. So, for example, local RWAs are now have common chats. They are all talking about which gate to shut, which gate to open. They are talking about more sanitized way of walking. They are self-policing the regimen to be followed by their locality. Communities are self-policing and they're taking very positively to self-policing. So I think the trust factor in the local community will determine a lot about the shape of architecture to come. I think I've shared a lot of ideas, but I think another one which is really bothering me at one level but also making me happy is about the shape of educational facilities. So we know that any amount of educational facility that we have built in terms of infrastructure of education facility, physical infrastructure, it has never been enough. There is always a need and to have more schools, more colleges, and these schools and colleges have been designed around the notion of gathering 40 or 50 or 60 students together to impart instruction. The last few months have shown us all that the world is operating now on remote instruction. It may not be the happiest situation for some, but there's also a large level of outreach of education that has happened now. So we've always talked about using the digital medium for education, and they have been for the longest time, there have been a lot of online programs for the same, but I don't think they've had membership or participation of the kind that they have now. So something that a lot of us did not accept as a real possibility, but just something you dabble in an emergency, or you do as a hobby, or you do as a pastime, or you do in the absence of physical premises based education, has actually now become a reality. So I think I see schools and colleges becoming boundary-less in some ways. I see that, for example, if I want to learn Spanish, I don't think I'll go to a Spanish school any longer. I think I will probably have a Spanish teacher from Spain teach me the same thing online. So what will start happening perhaps is universities and schools will decentralize, and they are the most likely, in my opinion, to become online resources. And what will be in the purview of design is actually the environments of these places where people impart instruction from. So I think this is, hang on a minute, I think somebody is sending me a message, which I think may be a question. No. Okay. So I think this is going to impart, this is going to look at education in a different way. We are looking at socializing in a different way. We are looking at rebuilding community strength and therefore reinforcing community-based architecture. We are perhaps going to be more locally reliant, and unfortunately I see the emergence of personal transportation back again. And on that note, I want to ask if there are any questions, then please, any of my viewers, who by the way I'm very thankful for for logging in to listen despite the technical glitches. I would be grateful if there were any questions coming in or suggested topics that you have had some thoughts on. I would be happy to address them right now. Okay, so I've added a couple of people. Okay, so now I think I've covered a large range of subjects, and I'm going to leave this conversation at this point, and I hope I have given some insight into thoughts that some of you would have probably already had a lot of these thoughts. And I hope I get a chance to hear from you all. I'm happy to receive any messages. I'm happy to carry on this discussion online. And thank you for logging in today. Thanks. Bye-bye. And stay safe.